Okay, so good afternoon, y'all. It is 1:10. It is wonderful. I hope y'all had a good lunch. So, the meeting now called back to order, and we are a little behind schedule. So if there is is there any objection to limiting comments to 2 or 3 minutes and 3 minutes for questions? And does anybody object to that? Good, I thought you wouldn't. Okay, so that no, so I'm then what is man? All right, so the next I know is is our committee report and the our first report is the planning committee, and I chaired that, but it's rather lengthy, so I'm going to ask Stephanie to please read the report for the planning committee. So Stephanie, you have the floor.
Thank you. The FFY 2026 Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee met on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The draft plan that the committee approved has been included in your packet, and I'm showing you now. During the meeting, the committee allocated additional funds to activity 1.148, which is the abuse and neglect exploitation training. The contract would like to continue working and include some short videos for marketing and for educational purposes during the training. They also allocated funds to activity, additional funds to activity 8.1.5. Which will expand, the transition to adulthood, which will expand the program to include more training topics. The contractor expressed that they had about 3 or 4 additional topics that they would like to include for that series. Funding was allocated for 2 new initiatives, activities 2.1.2, which is appropriate, accessible sex education, which will be a training, an inclusive training for teens. And then activity 2.3.1, which is an accessible women's health initiative, where they're looking to find an expert to create materials. Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you.
It's hard to catch.
Sorry, thank you.
I almost said that, but sorry. I was like, you know, more than me.
Do y'all want me to start over? I can, but it's up to the council.
Whatever.
Whatever you want, Joe.
Yes, Stephanie, maybe start over.
Start from the beginning?
When I weren't able to hear.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the FFY 2026 Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee met on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The draft plan that the committee approved has been included in your packet. During the meeting, the committee allocated additional funds to activity 1.1.8, which is the abuse, neglect, and exploitation training. The contractor has expressed that they would like to continue working on this project and include short videos for marketing the training as well as educational purposes during the training. They also allocated additional funds to activity 3.1.5, which is the transition to adulthood training. The contractor wants to expand this program to include more training topics. I believe it was 3 or 4 additional topics, so it would still include the topics for, that they are doing this year, but just some additional ones that they felt were important, and I don't remember what they were off the top of my head. Funding was allocated to 2 new initiatives, activity 2.1.2, appropriate and accessible sex ed, which is going to be an inclusive training for teens. And activity 2.3.1, accessible women's health. The outcome for the committee wants to find an expert to create materials for the accessible women's health and then use those materials, put them in plain language so that they're easy to read for everybody. In order to allocate the funds to the new initiatives, the committee decided to reduce funding from activity 1.1.1, which is partners in policymaking. They reduced it by $30,000 because at the last committee meeting, so the 2025 plan, there were $30,000 was added to host an alumni event, and that alumni event is every 5 years. And so since that event is happening this year, they will no longer need that for the next year. And then they also reduced funding from activity 1.2.1, which is people first. Over the last 3 or 4 years, they did not use all of their funding. So they reduced it a little bit to meet closer to what they were spending. They then decided to remove funding from activity 1.1.5, which is updating the website and changing everything to plain language. The website and the documents will be completed, so it no longer needs funding. Activity 2.2.2 and 2.2.3. And I'm going to kind of talk about them together because they are both the FASD, the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, training and awareness. The first one was an awareness project, so it does not need to be continued. And then the second one was a pilot program, and we helped with funding for the pilot, so they're no longer going to need that funding. So after reading and approving the draft plan, the committee motioned to send the draft plan for the FFY 2026 action plan to the full council for consideration and then adjourned.
Okay, thank you so much. So that was my report for the FY planning committee. So, any questions from members?
Right.
Okay, anything in person? Angela, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Activity 2.1.2. Just for clarification for me, who's actually doing this? Like the school, we're hiring somebody that's gonna, how does this look like? We just providing support to who? Does that make sense?
2.1.2.
You would have to put out a proposal
Okay,
to see who would, like all of our new contracts, we put out proposals to see who is able to
provide this.
provide that
Okay.
particular service within that initiative.
All right, that's all I want. Thank you.
Vivian, you're recognized.
Didn't y'all find one with like a decent price range that Wildlife used that was pretty good? I think we have things for that maybe.
The only thing I remember about them is I gave them the name.
We have the name, but and they could respond to the proposal that we put out.
Yeah, and people.
But we have to make it equitable.
Yeah.
For folks to apply, but yeah, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but we do have that name. Yeah, and so if you decide to move forward with that initiative, when we put the proposal out, they can certainly apply to be able to provide that statewide.
Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Cruz. I am the coordinator for Partners in Policymaking. Most of y'all already know me. I'm just available to answer any questions y'all might have about the program and the funding. What was stated is correct. We do have a reunion this year. It's August 29th and 30th. So those extra funds that we got last year are gonna go to that. There is a little more that's put on there than I think we could do with a little less, but I just want y'all to keep in mind about every $10,000 equals about 5 participants. So the goal is always to have as many participants as we can. This year it's approximately 20, and we're gonna do that with about 100,000. So 115, you would be able to do 25 participants. So that's kind of what I wanted to explain to y'all, depending on where the participant is coming from, whether they're a self-advocate and require assistance to have a private hotel room. Those kind of things, a single participant will average anywhere from like 1,500 to 3,000 to go through the program from beginning to end. So I just wanted to introduce myself for any of y'all who don't know me, and happy to answer any questions about the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. Any more questions in the room? Keisha or Hannah or?
We have a hand raised.
Okay, Lil, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking my question. I just had a quick question about activity 1.1.7, the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum. It looks like the formatting of this document to indicate change has a strike through and red text with the proposed adjustment. For LAYLF, there's that strike through in the red, but the funding level doesn't seem to change. So I just wanted to clarify that YLF will be maintaining the same amount of funding from fiscal year 25 to 26.
Thank you.
I can answer that question if you don't.
Okay.
I'll come closer.
That's gonna say, oh, call.
Hi, Lillian. This is Stephanie. I'm gonna answer that question only because I edited the document. So you're correct, the funding amount did not change. And if you look at other ones the reason that it has the strike through is because I was just changing the year. So the 2025 was last year, and then this is gonna be the new year 2026. So I just wanted to show that there was an edit there, but the amount did not change.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Okay, yes, Hannah. Any more hands?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we have a big deal. One. Can I do it? Oh. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the 2026 draft plan.
I motion to, approve the 2026 draft.
Okay, motion by Eric, second by. Hold on. Second by Jeff. Okay, thank y'all so much. Alright, so then, okay. So, oh Lord. So it is moved, oh, y'all, my bad. It is moved that the FY 26 action plan, and I should have read this, because the motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Okay. So is there any further discussion? All right, any public comment? Thank y'all. Okay, are y'all ready for the question? Pause. The question is on. Alright. The question. Okay.
I can second it for the FFY 2026 action plan.
Thank you. Okay, so are y'all ready for the question? Public or not?
Councilmember.
Me?
Oh, Frank Macaluso.
I
Frank,
can second the action plan.
Frank, you are recognized. Thank you,
Welcome.
but that was. Wait, can I ask a question? So, Frank, did you have your hand raised?
I did.
I did.
I did. Tony.
Okay, so if Tony and Frank have questions, you just take them in that order of what they wanted to say.
Cause, but, hang on. Okay, Frank, you are recognized by the chair.
I propose, I accept the motion.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have a roll call vote. So if you are in favor for the motion to accept the FY 26 action plan, say yes. When your name is called, if you are opposed, say no. If you abstain, say abstain. Ebony, will you please call roll?
Ms. Hannah Jenkins is gonna take the roll call for me.
Okay, Ms. Hannah Jenkins, will you take the roll call?
Gladly.
Thank you.
Dr. Maravecchio?
Abstain.
Dr. Maravecchio abstaining. Ms. Bayham? Yes. Ms. Bayham, yes. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett, yes. Mr. Billings? Mr. Bluntschli? Is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Weston, yes. Mr. Boynton? Ms. Shashery? Yes. Ms. Shashery, yes. Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Craig, yes. Mr. Ennis?
Yes.
Mr. Ennis, yes. Ms. Hagan? Yes. Ms. Hagan, yes. Ms. Hayno?
Yes.
Ms. Hayno, yes. Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon, yes. Ms. Jordan? Same. Ms. Jordan abstained. Ms. Kelly Dooley?
Yes.
Kelly Dooley, yes. Mr. Malpaluso?
Yes.
Mr. Malpaluso, yes. Dr. Maida?
Yes.
Dr. Maida, yes. Ms. Nguyen? Mr. Piontek? Tony? Tony, you have to unmute to the. Tony, we didn't hear your vote, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Tony, Mr. Piontek, yes. Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco, yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, yes. Ms. Stewart? Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, yes. Ms. Washington? Ms. Webb? Yes. Ms. Webb, yes. Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Dr. Wilson? Dr. Sue?
Yes.
Dr. Sue, yes.
19 yeas, 2 abstentions.
Yes, two abstentions.
Okay,
The motion passed.
so they, Miranda, 18 years, no, 2 abstentions, the motion passes. Okay. Hold on. Oh, okay, so then we have to vote on, do we vote on the budget or is there one?
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Jill, if you were talking to me.
So,
I think this was just to give you information.
okay,
It's all one. And the motion, I had the motion from the committee pulled up, but I got kicked off.
it's all one vote. Okay, so, okay. That. Okay, so. The next item of business is the report from Act 378 subcommittee and almost positive that Ms. Harmon will give that report.
Yes, thank you, Jill. The Act 378 Subcommittee met yesterday. We do not have any recommendations for the council to consider at this time. We did spend time reviewing the fiscal year 25 third quarter data for programs within the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health and Aging Adult Services / the ARC Louisiana. These reports can be found linked in our committee agenda on the council's meeting webpage if you would like to review. There were a few questions about the OBH report showing Imperial Calcasieu Human Service District having a negative balance of $10,582. It was explained that this is due to reduction in funding due to a federal grant that was terminated. Based on the information provided, it appears that all the local governing entities or LGEs are on target with their expenditures for the individual and family support, consumer care resource, supported living and flexible family fund, House Bill 559 by Representative Echols was also discussed. The bill was written and would bring the LGEs back under the control of LDH. The LGE directors will work at the will of the LDH secretary and the Surgeon General and to be required to follow statewide initiatives. Currently, the LGE board is responsible for hiring LGE directors, making plans based on needs of their local community. By bringing hiring authority back into the department, it will significantly reduce the authority of the LGE boards. On April 29th, Health and Welfare discussed this bill, and the need for more oversight and accountability for the LGEs were expressed. Public testimony was also provided by some of the directors of the LGEs, and Representative Echols is committed to working with all parties to ensure the bill is in a posture that benefits everyone. The bill was deferred and will be heard next week. If you work closely with the LGE in your region or have an opinion, positive or negative, it is strongly recommended that you reach out to your legislators to get your voice heard. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, Ms. Harmon. Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, hold on. This report requires no action and will be replaced on file. The next item of business is education happening. Yeah. Yes. Okay, and the chair recognizes Vivian,
Okay, cool.
right? Am I correct in that? Okay.
So, yesterday on April 30th, we received important updates from Louisiana Rehabilitation Services and the Louisiana Department of Education about programs and changes affecting students with disabilities. The LRS update from Melissa Bayham, pre-employment transition services, pre-ET. LRS continues working with school districts through third-party cooperative arrangements. They reviewed applications from private vendors who want to provide pre-ETS to make sure that they are meeting certain criteria. Out of all who applied, 27 were approved, 2 are still pending, and 5 choose not to reapply. All vendors must use state-approved curriculum or get theirs approved. LRS is waiting to see what the state budget will be for next year. Right now, they are spending more than 15% of their federal funds on PTs. So they may have to cut back. The LDOE update from Meredith Jordan, Teacher Leader Summit in June will include sessions on special education, best teaching practices, behavior supports, IEP guidance, as well as many other sessions, policy updates. All special education policies bulletins are now updated, but they may need to be changed again after the legislative session. These changes have been approved by SEEP, superintendents, and Bessie. Bulletin 1530 IEP handbook updated the rule for alternate assessments like Leap Connect. Louisiana was testing more students than allowed under federal rules. Only students with significant cognitive disabilities will qualify starting in 2025, 2026. Current high school students are grandfathered in. New students who do not qualify anymore can still earn a diploma through the Able Done Act. Bulletin 1508, Child Find Pupil Appraisal Handbook, better definition of response to intervention, added licensed psychologists and speech language pathologist assistants to appraisal teams. Teams can now do more screenings, updated autism criteria to match current standards, simplified how schools can use out-of-state diagnoses and medication information. Legislative updates from Ebony Haven, House Bill 237 by Representative Mack. This bill was drafted under the legislative audit on restraint and seclusion practices. Drafted with the help from Disability Rights Louisiana, the ARC of Louisiana, and LDOE and the Disabilities Council. Key points and seclusion in schools, it's not best practice, obviously. Defines what physical restraint is and who can use it. Requires monitoring during and after restraint. A nurse or health staff to check on the student ASAP. A report sent to parents within 24 hours. Video review if available to check for policy compliance. Behavior intervention plans must be reviewed after 3 incidents, down from 5. Schools must post their policies and LDOE must review these policies yearly. House Bill 589 requires the legislator to vote every 2 years on whether they want certain reports. LDOE will still collect and publish their data regardless. Contractual activities, the committee also got updates on contracts for Goal 3 of the fiscal year 25 action plan. Members are encouraged to check the quarterly status update and linked documents in the agenda for details on each activity.
Alright, you Vivian, are there any council members with questions on the report? Are there any public comment? Okay, this report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the self-determination committee report. So the chair recognizes Brooke Stewart. Brooke, you have these 4.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
The Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee met yesterday and does not have any recommendations to present to the council at this time. We received a lot of great updates from the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, or OCDD, Medicaid, Office of Aging and Adult Services, or OAAS, and staff. During the meeting, Julie Foster Hagan, Brian Bennett, and Gary Williams shared multiple updates about their departments and issues on the state and federal level. Some of these updates can be found in their agency reports, which are included in your council meeting packet. A couple of things I wanted to mention. The council was informed that the state budget is currently going through the process of legislative session, and all services are at a standstill with no increases or decreases. However, as a result of Governor Landry's request to look into the efficiencies or reduction in costs, community outreach specialist contracts from Early Steps, some held by Families Helping Families, will not be renewed effective July 1st. This job will now be completed by Early Step staff. The contract with the ARC for People First funding totaling $110,000 was eliminated. Medicaid allowance of 50% administrative match will now be replaced with 50% CMS administrative match to cover some position salaries, which equals about 4.2 million. It was shared that while the state general fund may have shown a reduction for these positions, there is an increase in interagency transfers. There is a question of how the state would cover the CMS portion of staff salaries should Medicaid see a cut at the federal level. The Revenue Estimating Conference will likely meet in May to discuss the state revenues forecast, meaning how much money the state will bring in next year. Hopefully after that meeting, we will have a better idea of estimated state dollars and any need for cuts or increases. Our new LDH Secretary, Bruce Greenstein, started last week and held a press conference to share his areas of focus, which include implementing Project Mom, which focuses on maternal overdose mortality, fraud, waste, and abuse task force, reforming the Medicaid pharmacy benefits management, behavioral health and how it connects with intellectual developmental disabilities and chronic disease, and also House Bill 559 by Representative Eccles was discussed. As written, this bill will bring local governing entities, or LGEs, back under LDH's control rather than local. If you work closely with the LGE in your region and have an opinion, positive or negative, it is strongly recommended that you reach out to your legislators to get your voice heard. Lastly, we discussed the contractual activities under goal 1 and 2 in our plan. I encourage you to review the status of planned activities document in your meeting packet for updates on those initiatives.
Okay, thank you, Brooke. Okay, are there any council member questions from on the report? Any public comment? Okay, this question. Oh, this question. This report requires no action and will be placed on file. Okay, hallelujah. Okay, the next item of business is our standing member reports. Please refer to your packet on refer to your report in your packet. Our first report is the Government of Office of Disability Affairs. The chair recognizes Liam Doyle.
Good afternoon. So the 2025 legislative session convened on Monday, April 14th, and will adjourn on Thursday, June 12th. The Governor's Office for Disability Affairs is monitoring all legislative activities, legislative instruments, and disability-specific legislation from the 2025 regular session. The Governor's Office of Disability Affairs invites all organizations and representatives to meet with the Executive Director, Mr. Martinez, as to discuss their legislative positions. We have a Disability Day at the Capitol 2025. It's the first, hopefully annual. It's scheduled for June 2nd, 2025. That's a typo. The Split Second Foundation and the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs, or GACTA, will co-host the 2025 Disability Rights Day at the Capitol. This event will enable disability-based organizations to meet and interact with legislators, the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs, and state leaders during the 2025 regular session to emphasize the importance of their work in their communities. There will be between 15 and 20 participating organizations at Disability Awareness Day and the Capitol event. Participants will be allowed to set up a table in the Capitol Rotunda to share information about their organizations and legislators to the public. An itinerary and schedule of events will be made available on May 8th, which will be next week, so give us another week. And I believe if you want to, if your organization would like to sign up, it's not too late, go ahead and reach out to either Jamar or myself, and we'll be happy to get you on the list. And lastly, we have our annual conference. The Governor's Office of Disability Affairs is in the midst of planning our 2025 GOTA conference. We are accepting proposals and topics for breakout sessions, and that conference will take place in July on the 22nd and 23rd of that month, and we have space in the Claiborne Building Reserve. The deadline for applications is May 16th, and that's all we have.
Okay, thank you, Liam. Are there any questions about this report from the room? Any comments and questions on Zoom? So they, that item is the Bureau of Health Services financing, which is Medicaid. In the chair recognizes Mr. Brian Bennett for his report.
Thank you, Jill. So my report's the blue packet. So in the first part of the report, I included a few updates or news items. The one that I wanted to spend the most time talking about is the Beneficiary Advisory Council. I think probably a lot of you have heard lately, I know Julie has talked about in the past about the access rule. That's a new federal rule that was finalized and published last year in 2024. It contains a whole host of different requirements for home and community-based services that all states will have to come into compliance with over the next couple of years. So it's going to be a fairly large redesign for all of our home and community-based services programs. But one of the first requirements that's coming up in that rule is states have to form a beneficiary advisory council. This council will kind of serve as a subcommittee to the larger Medicaid quality committee. And we put out a call for applications. They actually closed yesterday here in the month of April. So in the next probably week or two, we're going to start looking at those applications to select members with the goal of having that first meeting either in June or late July. But what's special about this committee is that this committee will be focused or comprised of Medicaid receiving community-based services, their parents or guardians, or providers or direct support workers. This committee will help to inform the larger Medicaid quality committee of any issues directly from the perspective of those receiving community-based services. And also there will be a few members on this committee that will also serve a dual role on the larger Medicaid quality committee. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. As of last week, I think we received around 65 applications as of last week. So we had a pretty good response to it. And we're going to try to select members from across the different programs. So ideally, we would like representation from people that are receiving services under the USCD programs, the OAS programs, and the Office of Behavioral Health programs. And with that, we also want to get Medicaid members, parents, guardians, and providers and direct support workers, just so that we can have a wide view of experiences on the committee and so that they can provide feedback. Something else that is fairly new is LDH is working with our MCO plans. We formed a work group to look at applied behavioral analysis services or APA services. It's still very early on in the process. In fact, we're having a work group this morning. But the intent is we're trying to bring all the plans together to try to standardize what we can. That's some of the feedback that we've heard from the PCOs is that they all do things kind of differently as far as the assessments and everything. So we're working with them to see if it makes sense to standardize any of those things, and if it does, we will. And then another big goal is to try to get children into that service quicker, so that there's not as long of a wait to start receiving those services. That's
would you be standardizing as well for adults who need ABA across the board, because there's nowhere on anything that does that? The nearest place is Monroe, and I live in Shreveport.
I would have to check into that. I know right now we're just looking at the services, for children, that's the Medicaid covered benefit. But, what I hope to do is as we get further into this work group, either myself, or ideally, I would like to bring one of the staff that works directly with the ABA program, the managers, to come to, maybe the self-determination committee to share some of the things that they're working on, once they have a concrete plan. So, I would like to do that maybe next quarter or the quarter after that. So I will say this work group will probably be going on for about a year, so it's not a short-term project, it's more of a long-term project, and we'll identify things to work on throughout the year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just really quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've also mentioned in some of my past reports, the justice involved initiatives that we have going on. And just to provide a quick update on that. So, what both of these do, we have both an 1115 waiver and, that will provide pre-release Medicaid coverage to adults that are incarcerated, but that are scheduled for release. And also we have kind of a corresponding component that, will target children or youth that are incarcerated, but also that are scheduled to release, to get them pre-release Medicaid coverage, to make sure that they're signed up for Medicaid before they're released, to go back home or back into the community, to try to facilitate that re-entry process. So those are two different pieces of work that we're working on. For the 1115 demonstration, that's the one for the adults. We submitted our application to CMS back in the fall or late summer, fall of 2024. We're still waiting to get some additional feedback from CMS on that. I think with the change in the federal administration, that transition has kind of slowed the review process of that one down. But as far as the youth piece, we are looking to start that on July 1st. That's our tentative start date for that. And we are working very closely with the Office of Juvenile Justice and some of the other state correctional facilities on that piece. And for the remainder of the report, I have some updates, numbers, and data for some of our services and programs, but I wanted to spend the rest of my time providing some more information on dental. I know that that's come up over the last 1 or 2 meetings. And I talked to our dental staff just to get some additional information on that. I know in the past there was a question about out-of-pocket costs for Medicaid members. Should there ever be out-of-pocket costs? And the answer to that is no, but you need to just like any insurance, you would need to look into your member handbook to make sure that you take a look at all the services that are covered in your benefit. And you would also have to, and this is a very important part, look at your plan provider directory and get services through one of those providers that are enrolled in Medicaid. The provider does have to be enrolled in Medicaid in order to be reimbursed by Medicaid. One thing that the plans have done recently, though, is they've been looking at their provider directories to make sure that the providers that are listed are actually willing and able to provide services. So, if a Medicaid member goes on to their plan's website, either MCNA or DentaQuest, those are the two plans, and they search for a provider, they can now select the program type. So if it's the children's program, if it's the adult waiver program, the ICF program, they can make that selection. And then I think you can also choose your parish or wherever you live. And it'll return the providers that are in your area for those specific programs. So that's one thing that the plans have been trying to do lately, is to make sure that they have an accurate listing of providers for each of those different programs. And also with MCNA, they've begun reaching out to some of our ICF facilities to let them know and to work more closely with them to let them know which providers are in their area that they're in, so that they're familiar with those dental providers. Anybody have any questions?
I'm gonna step in and cover for Jill while she takes a break for a minute, but I wanted to, and my report is next. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about ABA too. Are y'all seeing an increase? I suspect you are, with the ABA Medicaid requests.
Yes, over the past few years, we've seen a fairly large increase in the I'm just looking at it from the claims perspective and the amount of payments that we're paying out. We've seen a fairly large increase.
Okay, I'll save a couple more of my because I think I'll complement a little bit what you talked about. Any further discussion on this report from the council? None. Any public comments on this report? None. All right, no further comments. This report will be placed on file. No further action is needed, so we'll place this one on file. I'll turn it back over to Jill for you to just call on me.
Okay, so thank you. So the next report is there, Ms. Jordan from the Department of Education.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have any information.
Okay, Ms. Liz, you have the floor.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jill. Thank you, Jill. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. I just had a question back on the ABA that I think it was Meredith that just asked something to Brian about, but I'm pulling names. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going by voices only. My question is do we know if it's ever been cleared up as to who can get the ABA if they're on Medicaid? And I'm asking this because I've heard this happened to me probably 10 years ago, and I've heard that it's still a problem, where my son with Down syndrome was rejected from getting ABA Medicaid because they didn't have, in quotes, a code in the system. And once I got to the department, the Secretary of Department of Health, it was cleared up that it is not related to a specific disability, as long as there was a prescription as well as a doctor recommendation that a child with a disability who would benefit from it would be allowed to receive it. I'm just trying to find out if that's ever been fixed, because as recently as a year ago, I was hearing complaints again from families who had children with Down syndrome that could benefit from the ABA getting rejected because they were not supposedly covered under the law.
Liz, this is Brian. I will have to take that question back and ask my the ABA manager on that. Is the question specifically is how they determine eligibility for the program?
Well, not so much. When the problem I was having, and as recently as a year ago, it wasn't so much that, well, yes, I guess it was eligibility, because the law stated, it didn't say, it stated any behavioral disorder that had a prescription, including autism. And every time somebody would call to try to get the service, even the ABA clinics were having problems. They were told that, well, Down syndrome is not covered, which was not factual.
I will look into that, Liz, and I'll reach out to you directly, and then I'll also have an update for the council at the next meeting.
I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, I miss you.
I miss you too.
So any more questions for Brian? Okay, so that, hold on, guys. So, not hearing done in this request, this report requires no action and will be placed on file. So, the next item, this is the report from the Department of Aid. The chair recognizes Meredith Jordan for her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is on the pink paper. I want to just start, and I won't harp on this for long, because I know we talked about some last meeting about our results as they were being released while we were meeting. But wanted to share with you, I know you all can appreciate a good visual and some nice data. And so I wanted to include a couple of visuals about our latest NAEP data that we talked about a little bit, and really the remarkable results that our students with disabilities are showing, both in straight performance and growth, outgrowing other students with disabilities across the country. And just wanted to provide those visuals again, celebrating our students and our parents, all of our community members. It takes every single one of us to keep growing and keep getting the results that we want to see. All of the policy work that people around this table, my seat panel, just a lot of people really coming together to help us do better for our kids. And I know we're going to just continue in that. So moving forward, we do have open right now for public comment our draft IDEA funding application. And we talked about this a little bit in depth yesterday at EE committee. And again, this draft is still based on funding from last year. Our current funding amount, we don't have final funding. I inquired again this morning about it, and we should, we're hoping to receive our next funding amount within the next couple of weeks, because this application is due on May the 20th, I believe, to the U.S. Department of Education. So hoping to see those dollar amounts soon. And again, just to let the full council know, we have no indication that it's going to drop. We have every indication that it should at least remain as last year. So that's out for public comment for anyone who's interested in going there, showing support for our funding and or providing additional feedback on the application. Just to provide a quick update on SEEP, our last meeting was March the 26th. They did some great policy work at the last SEEP meeting as well, that we also detailed yesterday at the EE committee. We talked additionally about the seclusion and restraint audit report at SEEP that we've also talked about here, and kind of what were some next steps. We are going to meet with SEEP again on June 18th. Really want to start thinking about moving into next year. What are their desires, wishes, priorities, continued supports that they want to see. And so we'll meet with SEEP again June 18th. I do have applications open for just a handful of seats. I don't have a lot of vacancies. I know I tell y'all this all the time. I want to take everybody. But we have limited seats, but we are looking for an individual with a disability, a teacher, and one parent of a student with a disability. And I have some of those vacancies who are also potentially going to reapply for a second term. So limited seats, but please apply. I want to take everybody if I could. But those applications are open. If you click on the link here, and then you can just email the application to us at specialeducation@la.gov. The next update is we currently have our special education parent involvement survey open. Every year we are required to survey the parents of our children with disabilities. The purpose is to really seek feedback on how well our schools are doing to both involve parents and make them feel a welcomed part of the process, help them understand the process, and that is how we use that information, this particular survey, to also guide our efforts at the state. We provide those results for the individual school systems who are chosen to participate. We also give those results to them. It also factors into, and I brought my data person with me sitting in the back from our team just to kind of hear our conversations. And we also use those results in our local LEA's determination. So we kind of give them a score on how well they're doing based on how their parents are answering this particular survey is a part of how well they are doing. Because that particular feedback should drive us, it matters. So we have the LEAs listed here who are selected. So we have to provide a representative sample of our survey results up to the federal government as part of our reporting. These are the selected LEAs. Letters have gone out. My team creates these letters. We try to make it as easy as possible on LEAs to get these letters to the parents, as well as a secure ID, so that each parent can anonymously access the survey with a passcode and anonymously give their feedback and input. So you see the ones here who are chosen as part of that survey result. However, I have another link at the very bottom that any parent can take, that we can kind of use broader results to also help guide us as a state. But there is a certain subsection, that's the ones you see listed in the chart, that we report to the feds as part of our reporting. So this is open, we leave it open through the summer to really we have parents who call Miss Oates, who's sitting in the back right here, and they will call her. They can give her their results. She will enter them. So we try to make the survey as accessible as possible. We have parents who will mail the survey in to us, and we will accept it and enter it that way. And certainly if they can accept it and do it online, then that's a way that they can access the survey as well. So we have that going on through the summer. My next update, we also have our kindergarten dyslexia screener open right now. We had Act 266 in 2023, so this is our second year of the kindergarten dyslexia screener. It is at no cost. Every single kindergartner in our state is provided this dyslexia screening. And we have this particular screening open right now. I also want to give a quick numeracy update. We've done a lot in our state around literacy, and we're seeing the results of that, even for our students with disabilities, making sure they have access to high quality literacy instruction. We have added a focus on foundational numeracy skills. You see that also reflected in the council's plan too, around financial literacy. Bessie has added that financial literacy as a required component of high school coursework for all students now as well. So I like how those things kind of nicely align with the council's plan here as well. We have developed a full suite. One of the things that we realized when you go out and look for high quality training on foundational numeracy skills, there's not a lot out there that is pre-developed. So in Louisiana, we got our experts together who know and understand our math standards and those early foundational skills. We have created our own student. All students, all grade 4 through 8 mathematics teachers are required to complete this training. This also includes our special educators and educators who are touching our students with disabilities. Their foundational literacy and foundational math are critical to their educational success and making sure we are closing those gaps and helping them move forward in these skills. So we have that training happening. And honestly, guys, what you also find a lot of times in mathematics, I was an ELA teacher, right? And I have said, I'm not a math teacher, right? You don't want me teaching math. But what we see too is just in general, finding educators who know deeply math and math concepts is getting harder and harder. What this particular training does is it's not just strategy, it is also helping to ensure that our teachers understand deeply math concepts. It is teaching them and supporting them through the same math that we're requiring, that foundational math that we're requiring of our students. So it's really an incredible training that I would put next to nothing across the country because there really isn't a whole lot of training that will do this. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited about the support this is going to provide for our kids with disabilities and their the importance of that foundational math for them and building the capacity of our teachers to be able to do that and help support those challenges. I have an update here on the ABA guidance document that we just released that speaks to a little bit of what Mr. Bennett is definitely connected to it. So in the 2024 legislative session, Act 745 was updated around applied behavior analysis services in schools. And it changed that statute a bit. And so what we are trying to do through this guidance document is to communicate with school system leaders, communicate with educators about that update, what the requirements are to help them with implementation of that and help them with the implementation of applied behavior analysis in schools. We already have our state policy updated to be in alignment with those updates from that legislative session. And so really just wanting to assist our schools and our school system leaders in effective implementation. And so I think we will stay really close to this as we continue to offer what are the options to support behaviors in school and some of these needed services. So we have that guidance document out there and ongoing support happening. We are in our SEEK report collection period right now. So collecting those Special Education Advisory Council reports. I know that's something that this group has been really in tune to, and knowing and understanding what local special education advisory councils in your areas are doing. So we're collecting these through May because quite honestly, some of these groups could still be meeting. It's May. So they could still be meeting and we'll collect those, and then those will go to possibly June SEEK meetings. I'll have a report of all of those links for every school system, or it could go into our SEEK, our September SEEK. But either way, I'll also bring that public report back to you all as well. And then last but not least, we also have our SPED Fellow application that's open. This is our program to support new special education directors across our state. So those who are leading special education either in their first year, second year, or third year. And I also have I saved the best for last, one announcement for a save the date. We are partnering with the ARC, a day of support and learning for parents of children with disabilities. We're really excited. It's a first for me. since I've been here, and certainly something that we hope that we can also continue to do annually. It's going to be on July 21st from 9 to 3 at the Live Cook Center. Definitely watch the ARC. They are kind of communicating, taking the lead. We've partnered with them to get this event done and organized, and a really great agenda for parents. Other agencies around this table, be on the lookout. They'll probably reach out to you. We want to have some really great resources, community resources. It doesn't have to be all education, but what other resources, if we get all parents in a room, would we want to share with them and make sure that they have access to? And that completes my report. Madam Chair, there can have too long.
Okay, thank you, Meredith, but I do have a question. The diversity.
City Center.
Did you say at 260, or cause I heard 261, but I read 260.
I probably said it wrong. It's at 260.
Okay. Thank you. Are y'all any questions for Meredith? Or anything online? I thank you, with. Okay, so this report requires no action. It will be placed on file. So the next, item of business is the report from Disability Rights of Louisiana. The parent recognizes Mr. For the report.
Thank you, Jill. It's Tori. I'm remote today. Let's see. Our report, highlights of our program, updates on those activities. So our Client Assistance Program is our program that helps people with disabilities who are receiving or applying for services from Louisiana Rehabilitative Services and American Indian Rehabilitative Services. We are currently with that program assisting 32 people regarding problems receiving and maintaining vocational and rehabilitation services. And they are currently focusing on training people with disabilities and their family members about employment prior to the traditional transition age. And they are working with statewide partners to organize a statewide conference focusing on disability employment. I hope I will have more details about that soon, but I currently do not have more details about that. Our Community Living Ombudsman program, in that program, trained advocates who are known as ombudsmen advocate for people with developmental disabilities who live in ICFDDs across the state in order to maintain their rights. Currently, there are 481 publicly funded, privately run ICFDD facilities housing just over 3,900 individuals with developmental disabilities in Louisiana. In January of this year, and I apologize for that being a few months ago, but this is the most current information I have from our program directors. There's always a bit of a lag with these reports. Our ombudsman in that program in January alone visited 139 of the 481 facilities, received 72 requests for assistance from residents, and took action on all of those requests. For the fourth quarter of last year, the ombudsman visited 413 facilities and saw over 2,500 residents during that quarter. And as a result of those actions, we were able to help residents transfer to the community on a waiver, stop an involuntary discharge, get more opportunities to visit with family, have a staff person who was physically abusive, removed from a home, and give people information on their rights. In our supported independent living advocacy program, that serves individuals with developmental disabilities who are receiving OCDD waiver services and supports in their homes and communities. We are currently with that program assisting 40 people with obtaining and maintaining appropriate and necessary supports. Let's see, I won't go over the details of that case. In our representative payee program, we strengthened protections for Social Security beneficiaries. That program provides oversight to representative payees regarding their services to beneficiaries. Since the beginning of this year for the program, which was August 1st of 2024, we have finished 59% of the target number of cases for the year. We currently have another 15 cases in progress, and we should meet our goal of handling all the cases we set out to. Let's see. In our financial access and inclusion and resource program, we provide financial coaching and case management services to assist formerly incarcerated people with disabilities in overcoming employment and resource barriers. We recently reported to the city of New Orleans because this program operates in New Orleans, and unfortunately not beyond that because we just don't have the funding for that. This program is entirely privately funded with funds that we raise from private donors. Halfway through our 2-year grant, we were 80% of the way to reaching our goal of providing financial coaching and case management services to 45 formerly incarcerated Orleans Parish residents with disabilities. In 2024, we provided financial coaching and case management services to a total of 36 Orleans Parish residents. 22 or 61% of the 36 active clients were employed during this period. 15 or 42% of them maintained their jobs for over 90 days. And almost 2/3 of our clients achieved employment during this period. We anticipate that with time, a larger percentage of clients will be able to reach the goal of maintaining their jobs for over 90 days. 17 or 47% of the 36 active clients have increased their income while in the FAIR program, and those clients increased their income by a collective total of over $17,000 per month. And 5 of the 36 active clients entered the program with debts. Of those clients who reported existing debts, I think those numbers are a little off. I think 80% have reduced their debt by a collective total of $21,000. And that's all I got.
Any question? Thank you, Tori. Any question from the committee, council? Okay, thank you, Keisha. All right, Lynette, this report will be placed on file. No action will. Oh, that jazz. All right, the next person is very disturbing.
Here we go.
Done well. Stay with Lori, new. The next one is, okay, the next item of business is the Office of Aging in Adult and Aging Service, Mr. Gutierrez, and I said, Mr. Williams, for the report.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Report is pretty straightforward. I do want to highlight a couple of things, especially as it relates to our community choices waiver, CCW waiver.
No.
It is on, I don't even know what color it is. Got a color blind. Salmon. There you go.
Salmon.
But, again, pretty straightforward. And again, I do want to highlight a couple of things on the community choices waiver. The CCW, certified, not linkage, but certifications. Right now, we are, ahead fiscal year on year comparison. Right now, we have, for this fiscal year, we've certified 781, participants so far this fiscal year. So we're excited about that. Again, way ahead of where we were last fiscal year at the same time. We continue to provide support to the support coordinating agencies. They remain challenged with staffing and being able to move from linkage to certifications. So I definitely applaud our staff in our regional offices. We are providing a lot of support to those support coordination agencies because we want to ensure as best we can that participants get the services that they need in the most timely fashion. I know I pointed out before the CCW wait time is 13.5 years. But that is for participants who are receiving other services. For those, the wait time for those without any HCBS services is 9 months for the community choices waiver. Moving down to adult protective services, we have seen a bit of an uptick. I think I covered in a previous meeting that we did a public awareness campaign around adult protective services. We did some on social media. There were some billboards in certain parts of the state, helping the public at large recognize what exploitation looks like, whether that's abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. So since we began that campaign, we have seen a slight uptick in the number of abuse, neglect, exploitation cases that have been reported since running that public awareness campaign. So we're glad to see that at least those are calls or referrals that we are receiving now. To go back to the third page, you know, we leave this in our report because we continue to see this on as far as day-to-day operations are concerned, and that's the nationwide labor and workforce shortages that we're dealing with. That's one reason why we have issues or challenges, I should say, with direct service workers as well as support coordination agencies being to hire and maintain staff. As outlined beginning in 24, and we've continued into this fiscal year, 2025, we've continued to offer training opportunities to those direct service worker providers in hopes of helping with recruitment and retention of those workers. Hopefully that training is making a difference and having them better prepared to provide services to our participants, as well as providing them with any continuing education units that they need. As we move down to 2024, we're also, I just want to highlight, we're still in progress with our rate analysis, the rate setting activities. We're still having ongoing meetings related to that. So that's really it. Any questions for me?
Any questions about okay? All right, okay, hearing none, no, that's wrong. Are there any public comment? Okay, so, how are we on time? We are like 3 minutes ahead, so here. So if there are no objections, we will take a 10-minute recess. Is what time? 2:28. We will convene as what time was it? 2:38. Thank you. Elena, can you give me an order?
You're live.
It is 2:40. Y'all will come back on our next report is our next item of business is the report from Governor's Office of Elderly and there, so, the chair recognizes Ms. Sherry Crane for her report.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Sherry with the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. And I think the wrong report is up, but I'm not there to tell you what color paper it is on. So I'll go ahead. I'm just going to give highlights of my report. If you go down to the first page, Elderly Protective Services, we just kind of give that data on how many cases we have received in our office since July 1 of 2024. It's 4,665 cases, with the highest being financial exploitation of 1,548 cases, followed by self-neglect at 1,421 cases, which those two normally are the highest case number. I kind of talked about, in recent reports for this year and last year, where we did hire additional and got additional positions from legislation on the elderly protective investigators. So we have been tracking data, and the timeframes have shortened substantially since we got those extra positions. So that's good. But it also has brought in additional cases on too. So we're just trying to find that happy medium where the time frame is shortened and the caseload is not as high. So it is showing. We're just working on trying to tweak that to make it fair across every region, which is a little bit difficult. MIPA, we have, that is our Medicare Improvement for Patient and Providers Act program. Open enrollment's coming in October. And I'm just going to highlight the recent news. We hosted we do a biannual conference with our councils on aging, our directors there, and then some of their key staff personnel. So we had that conference this year, April 1st through 3rd at the Crown Plaza in Baton Rouge. We had over 100 attendees, and it was a huge success. I kind of talked about the next point where we had to update our policies and procedure manual for those councils on aging due to the Older Americans Act being changed, and that hadn't been changed in a number of years. So we had updated that. We completed that. It is now on our website. You're more than welcome to go look at it. Our next board meeting for our executive board on aging, they meet quarterly, will be held June 24th of 2025. Next month in May is our Older Americans Month. This year, the theme is set by ACL, which is the Administration for Community Living. It is Flip the Script on Aging. I have provided a link if you would like some more information on that. And of course, we need to remind everybody that hurricane season is right around the corner. Starts June 1st and ends November 30th. We have been blessed the last couple of years, and we want to continue to be blessed and not be hit hard. But we also want to make sure that everybody is ready. So there are two links there. One is to get a game plan, and the other is ready.gov. And then, of course, with the emergency disasters, GOEA continues to work with our MDAC, which is the Emergency Management for Disabled and Age Coalition, our feeding task force, along with other response recovery support groups like DCFS and transportation and so forth. And that is all of my report. We don't have really anything new and exciting going on, except we are following a couple of bills in session. One of the bills, it's to change the amount of money that is allocated to each one of our councils on aging. And there's a lot of criteria that go into that. So they're asking for an increase on how much allocation they get per person. So we're following that. And of course, House Bill 1, which is our budget. And then a couple of other bills. So other than that, that is my report. If anybody has any questions.
Lady council members having the question? Or does any public have any questions? Are hearing none? This requires no action. It will be replaced on file. That item is unless human development centers a chairman behind the constant of
Thank you. So I am with the Human Development Center, and we are the actual University Center for Excellence in Development and Disabilities in Louisiana. And so that's like our work is very important to the things that are being talked about with the ACL and everything. And so just as you're thinking about that, I'm going to highlight because we have a lot of programs that range from early childhood education to post-secondary transition and improvement. And so I'll just highlight some of the things that we did during the last quarter in each of those areas. So in our early childhood initiatives, we have our early Head Start that's been providing bi-monthly professional development for 60 early childhood teachers and administrators, and they've been doing topics related to class, which is the classroom language and assessment scoring system. And so they've been looking at language modeling because we know language is so important for students and helping expand that language. Looking at wellness strategies for teachers and stress reduction strategies, as well as child nutrition and oral health at school. And then the Early Head Start department is also mentoring a new cohort of Head Start directors across Region 6. And they'll be wrapping that up in May. And then we also have an initiative called Education, Transition, and Community. And so in that initiative, one of our projects is the STAR project. And so on the STAR project, some of the things that we did last quarter, we had presentations at 2 national conferences, CASH. We had the keynote session, which we talked about lessons from Louisiana, as you said. And then we had a presentation, a roadmap to engaging in accessible, inclusive education. And then at the CEC conference, we had 3 presentations. So we had one presentation called Collaborative Conversation, Student-Centered and Student-Led IEP, really providing educators and the families that were there strategies on how to support and involve students in their IEP. And then we have a strategy on 10 high yield and easy to implement instructional strategies to make learning accessible for all. And then we have one for including students with significant disabilities in all educational settings. Another project that we have that's in that initiative is our Louisiana Deafblind project. In that project, what they've done over the last quarter is they've been providing a series of trainings for LRS counselors on working with youth who are deafblind. And then they launched a Families Together, which is a support group that they're holding virtually for them. And then another initiative, well, another program within the transition education community is PayCheck. And so with PayCheck, we have a partnership with Delgado, and they provide pre-employment transition services for 18 students currently that they're supporting who complete 3 college classes over 3 semesters at Delgado, and then they have an opportunity to do 2 week. I don't know how long they are. So they have an opportunity to do 2 internships. And then we have our community health initiatives. And so in partnership with the Split Second Foundation, HTC has partnered to start hosting a grief support group. Not the highlight for that. And then our last one is our long-term training initiative. And so a big one within that is our leadership education and neurodevelopmental and related disabilities, which is our LEND program. And so this year we had a total of 12 scholars who represented various disciplines. We had a BCBA in the education, speech language pathology student, audiology student, public health and dentistry student. And then we had a self-advocate validate. And Elena was our parent that was on the list. And it's a 9-month program, over 300 hours, and it's very powerful. We're currently accepting applications. Any self-advocates in the room, or if you know anyone that is interested, it is really a powerful opportunity to learn about advocacy and to learn about disability and how, to advocate for your rights and to advocate for those things that are important to you in the world of disability. So I highly recommend if you can talk to me, send me an email if you're interested, especially if you're self-advocate, but you can be a parent, students, practicing professionals, anyone really has that opportunity. Any questions?
Okay, no question, no public, no. Okay. All right, what? I'm not done. This report requires the action, sorry, okay. The next item of business is the LRS report. The chair recognizes Melissa Bayham.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I reported on this right piece of paper. There's a lot of statistical information in this report that the council has requested. So I'm just going to go over a couple of things. In pre-employment transition services, you'll see bolded that we currently are providing services to 4,015 students statewide with disabilities. You'll note probably in the next quarter that number will drop. So what happens at the end of the school year, individuals who have exited the school system are no longer students with disabilities. So their pre-ex cases will be closed, and then obviously that number will pick up at the beginning of the school year when we start enrolling new students into that program. We currently still have 19 active third-party cooperative arrangements with local school districts, and we are continuing to meet with school districts to try to increase that number, to increase the number of contracts that we have directly with school districts to provide these services. I'll also note at the bottom of the first page, you'll see our percentage of eligibility determined within 60 days at 83%, and our percentage of new IPs approved within 90 days at 89%. That is below the federal criteria of 90%. We're currently on a federal corrective action plan for this, so we actually met with our federal team the other day, and they understand our staffing shortages and our funding challenges. So although I called it a fail, he said it's not a fail. Just because we do have some challenges in Louisiana, and he understands that we are doing the best that we can to improve those numbers. The only other thing, so you'll see the Louisiana Rehab Council. I'm gonna have to get us to change how we do this. Our council used to meet the week after this, and now we've moved the dates of these meetings, so now we meet before. So we did meet on April the 24th, last Thursday, for our quarterly meeting, and so we will be meeting again the week before this meeting next quarter. So I'll be sure to get that information to you all, but it will be on the board information website. Also, we'll mention we do have an in-house benefits planner. I know benefits planning has been an important question. We've gotten some questions from council about this this topic before, and our in-house, community, partner, working counselor, served 37 individuals last year. The last thing that I'll just kind of talk about, is budget. We kind of talked about just, things going on in terms of the state and the federal landscape. And so at the federal level, I reported yesterday that, there is, discussion, or there was an executive order about dismantling the Department of Education. And so I know some members were not aware of this, but vocational rehabilitation is actually federally under the Department of Education. It is a federal Department of Education grant. And so there has been, we haven't heard anything official, but if that were to take place, there's 2 places, vocational rehabilitation probably would land, and that would either be the HHS, Health and Human Services, or with the Department of Labor. As I think you all know, at the state level, we're under the Workforce Commission, so we're under at the state level, like many other vocational rehab agencies. And I also want to mention, this year, we just got in our final grant award notifications for federal fiscal year 25, and vocational rehabilitation did get a COLA, a cost of living adjustment. So last year, Louisiana was allocated for our vocational rehabilitation program approximately $64 million. And this year, our federal allocation was $72 million. So as I reported before, we don't have the matching funds to draw down all those federal dollars, but just to kind of let you know what's available for vocational rehab in Louisiana for federal fiscal year 25, it is $72 million. Which will require a $19.5 million state match to draw down the full federal award. So it hasn't yet been determined how much we will relinquish this federal fiscal year. That'll depend on where we land in terms of state appropriations for this session. But that's all I have.
Okay. Aiden, I have a question. So where do the adults that obviously don't fit under the criteria of students anymore, where do they fall under any of these numbers?
Let me look at my numbers. So the first thing I'll just kind of explain. So pre-employment transition services is kind of like the pre-program, for the full vocational rehabilitation program.
Okay.
But in terms of the numbers, so then you have that chart under those paragraphs, and you will see the total open VR cases as of March 26, 8,806. That's how many vocational rehab cases we have open. So if you want to know how many total people we're serving, you just add the 8,806 to the 4,015. And so that would be the total that LRS is currently serving. So 4,015 in the pre-ex program, and then 8,806 in the VR program.
So that includes adults that aren't, so what percent of that are adults that are adults and not students?
Of the 8,806?
Yes.
I can't tell you off the top. Okay, so the 8,806 are addition. So the 4,000 is only students. The 8,806 might include students, but it doesn't include those 4,000 students.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that even gets even more confusing because you can provide pre-ex in a VR case.
Okay.
So you could have some students in that 8,800, but that 4,000 are only students with disabilities, and they're in addition to the 8,800 that we serve. So essentially that 8,800 is primarily the adult population in the location.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Just a little bit, that's okay.
Well, and just explain one more thing. The reason why it looks like this, and the reason why we have what we call pre-ex cases, is we have to serve students with disabilities in pre-employment transition services, even if we have a waiting list. We currently don't have a waiting list, but we have to separate them. We have to have separate caseloads in the event that we do have a waiting list, because that's actually called potentially eligible. that 4,015 are not in the full vocational rehabilitation program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Melissa. All right, with no more questions, this requires no action. It's having 1 minute. Oh, do we have a quorum?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Just double check.
But we're maxed out. If anybody else leaves or turns the cameras off. we know
All
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the next, the next item of business is the Office of Public Health, and the chair recognizes Dr. Penn. Have I ever called you Dr. Peggy Veravecchio? Miss P, you have the floor.
Got it. Thank you, Jill. So this is a report from the Office of Public Health. The Bureau of Family Health actually administers the federal Title V Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs program. And so there, I apologize, it's more like a little mini book than a short report, but because there are so many programs under the Bureau of Family Health that support children and youth with special health care needs and disabilities and their families, and also the providers who care for them, we don't want to leave something out. So we offer subspecialty pediatric clinics in areas of provider shortages. Those are located around the state in public health units. In addition to that, we offer a transportation program. So if a family is covered through Medicaid and Medicaid transportation is not sufficient to meet their needs, they can apply for a stipend for that travel. They must apply through Medicaid first, though. And if you need any assistance with that, our Family Resource Center, which I'm going to mention next, can help you with that. So we also offer to families in the state of children with special health care needs and their families, the Bureau of Family Health Family Resource Center, and we literally will support a family for any resource need. It can be health related, mental health related, it can be dental, it can be social barriers to health, anything, food security. Our team at the Resource Center will work with the family to link them with the resources they need. And they do partner with Families Helping Families so that we can get them to peer support and community level resources. Next, we also do our program administers the early hearing detection and intervention program in the state. So all of the newborn hearing screens that are conducted on newborn babies, that is administered through what we call our EDDI program. And in conjunction with our EDDI program, there is Louisiana Hands and Voices, which is a peer support organization for all children who are deaf or hard of hearing or deaf-blind. And their goal is so those children will reach their full potential. And it's a parent-led organization, and it really provides a lot of support for these families and can network them and ensure that they know how to navigate the system to get the resources and supports that they need. We also do newborn genetic screening. So every child that's born in a birthing center, or most every child, receives a genetic screening at birth. A lot of people refer to that as heel stick testing, and they test for I think it's over 28 different genetic conditions. The Louisiana Birth Defects Monitoring Network is our state surveillance system for birth defects. They partner with our Family Resource Center, and we outreach to families identified through surveillance to offer them needs assessment and resource and referral support to ensure that those young children are linked to the important resources and supports for early intervention. We also support maternal, infant, and early childhood home visiting. It is a no-cost voluntary program that provides family support and coaching to improve the health and well-being of pregnant women and parenting families with young children. There is 2 different models that we administer in the state. One is nurse-family partnership, and the other is parents as teachers. They both have a little bit different eligibility criteria. Nurse-family partnership are for first-time moms, whereas PAT, it does not have to be a first-time mom, and it does include children of up till age 5. And then we also offer for our healthcare providers, we call it the Louisiana Provider-to-Provider Consultation Line. And this is a no-cost consultation education program for perinatal as well as pediatric providers to support them with managing behavioral health needs in primary care. Any Louisiana pediatric or perinatal provider can access those services free of charge. As part of Title V, we are in our needs assessment year. So as a program, we are doing a statewide needs assessment to determine the priority needs of the health of women and children and families in the state. You can find out a little bit of information about that in the report. And last but not least, Project SOAR is Screen Often and Accurately Refer. It is part of a federal early childhood comprehensive systems grant, and they're working to improve the developmental health system for the prenatal to age 3 population. They have just come out of developing a strategic plan with our provider and family partners across the state. And we're really excited. They're moving to implementing some really neat projects over the next 6 to 12 months. And then last but not least is our Young Child Wellness Collaborative. This is a cross-agency advisory council that provides leadership and informs priorities across the continuum of supports and services within the Louisiana's early childhood system. And currently, the YCWC, or Young Child Wellness Collaborative, is the advisory body for SOAR, but it has been in existence for many years and has served as a really viable cross-sector group to promote alignment and collaboration across all sectors that care for our children and families in the state. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Dr. Farrell, thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Meredith?
Thank you, Dr. Barriacchio. This is Meredith with the department. I really just want to connect with you, if possible, offline. I'm really interested in some of these special health services that you all offer. So we're getting more and more questions about community behavior resources. And so I just want to connect with you offline to see if there's more in terms of community for behavior that I can offer support to our school systems and help them make connections for families, for kids who might need some of these behavioral health services outside of school as well.
Absolutely. I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
And Ms. Patty, All right, okay, all right, this report requires no action. Right, okay, thank y'all, last, but of course not, we have my dear friend Julie Foster Hagan, from the Office for Citizen or OCDD.
Thanks, Jill. Our report, this quarter, you'll see is a bit revamped for those of you who've been around for a while, and those folks that are new won't notice anything different. We tried to make it a little bit simpler, but, and I mentioned this in the self-determination meeting. If there's anything you see that seems like it's missing or that you want us to add back, feel free to do that. We tried to take out some of the things that were duplicative, but then it may be that there were things more that you needed in terms of describing what programs we're talking about. So if you have any suggestions for how we can make this better, please do let me know. We are going to turn it into just our overall quarterly report that we are going to be making available on our OCD website. So just kind of the general public can have it. So we want to make sure it has all relevant information, but trying to do it in a way that's maybe a little more easy to read than what our previous report was. So kind of what we started with, or what are the hot topics or the things that we've heard about in the last quarter that we can share, followed by our activities, then just really go through sort of a breakout of data for the different programs under our office, you know, some for that quarter and then some demographic information. So what I'll do is hit some of the hot topics. We are still working on spending the Section 9817 American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We currently have until December of 2025 to spend that money. But in a last time that we did an update, we as well as OAAF and Medicaid asked for an extension, because we do think that we're not going to have all the funds spent by December. So we've asked to extend that to June of 2026, just to give us a little more time to either the activities we've already started to keep them going, or some of the things we've been trying to get piloted that, because we're a state entity, sometimes contracts and buying things just take too much time. So it's taking us longer to do than we wanted to. So we'll see if we do get that extension, and I'll keep you guys posted on that. We have hired, I talked, I think last time, that we are piloting an electronic assessment. And so we've hired assessors, and we're doing random folks. So if you have a comprehensive plan of care that's coming due, you may be randomly selected to participate in the assessment process using the electronic comprehensive plan of care. We'll be doing that at least through December. Hopefully we'll be able to continue beyond that. Our office is partnering with the Office of Behavioral Health at LSU so that we can conduct some training for professionals in supporting people with IED and serious mental illness. We know that's a gap area, so we're trying to get some, this will help community clinicians better understand how to serve folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We haven't done, there's a survey called the National Core Indicators Survey. It helps us to understand, it's like a satisfaction survey. It helps us to understand where are the things that we're doing well and where are the things that we can improve in the lives of people with disabilities. We haven't done an in-person survey in a while. We were able to use some of our Rescue Plan Act dollars to get a contractor who can come in and do those in-person surveys. So those will be starting in June. And a lot of times people will call me and say, hey, is this legit? Somebody's called me and said, hey, will you participate in a survey? So Clarant, QLARANT, is the name of the contractor we'll be working with. So if you do have outreach from someone, we will be spending time doing in-person National Core Indicator surveys this year.
And then lastly, I've been asked to give updates often on the rate study. We are still in the process of working with Milliman to do a community-based waiver rate study. If on waiver and on the ICF side, Myers and Stauffer. We anticipate the Milliman rate study to be done in June or July. And the Myers and Stauffer, I have that backwards. Myers and Stauffer study to be done in June or July, and the Milliman study to be done in August. And we'll be sharing that information with folks once we have it. We did have our value-based payment program approved by CMS. So we will be rolling those out. And what that is it means that if our home and community-based waiver providers and or support coordinators meet certain metrics or apply for certain things, then they can get a value-based payment for that activity. We have some activities around technology. We have a lot around the direct support workforce, training and recruitment and retention. So we are in the process of rolling those out. And then something that came up through the council as well as during our last roadshows was around incontinence supplies. We were hoping to start this April 1st, but we ran into some delays. And so effective July 1st, their adults in home and community-based waivers can have access to incontinence supplies up to $2,500 a year. And what we heard is that what the durable medical equipment provider could bill for was only getting the cheapest, lowest quality of briefs. And so we looked at what they're able to bill for that, and we're able to make an adjustment so that if a person needs something more than the low cost, cheaper diaper or incontinence supply, they can get a higher quality. We are just trying to make sure everybody understands that if instead of paying 30 cents a brief, you're paying 60 cents a brief, you're gonna hit that $2,500 cap sooner. So just making sure people think about that as they're budgeting that. The reason it took us a little longer is we were trying to put a few extra things in place. We want to make sure that if what you need is the higher cost brief, that the DME provider isn't able to bill up to that highest cost, even if they're still given the cheapest brief, so that people are then hitting their cap even if they have a lower cost. So we had to add some checks and balances. But starting July 1st, folks should find it easier to be able to get with the provider to get those different quality briefs if that's something that you need. And again, the rest is more data for our programs, but I'm happy to take any questions. And again, as you guys review, you can get through your staff if you have suggestions or things that don't seem to be working for the report. That concludes my report. You told me to be fast.
Wait, what?
You told me to be fast.
Hey, Angela. Thank you. Random, but anyway, how do you know with the incontinence supplies, you get the diapers or the pants or whatever there, why can't you get wipes? Why wipes are not included?
I think it's because that's not included. Like what we did was we tried to copy what they do in EPSDT for children to be able to have those incontinence supplies. I think it's because that wasn't like a covered service with children either, but I can verify that and find out. Because it went back and forth as to whether it could or couldn't. And I'll find that out.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any Tony, you're recognized. Isaiah Henry.
He's not music.
Is your hand raised on accident?
Think you don't know that you're talking to me.
Tony, did you want to say anything?
Yes, how does that pertain to from this year to last year? Like, was there some kind of a change in this particular of the particular discussion? Like, how was it a year from now?
So if you look, Tony, in the report that is the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities report, on page 2, it does provide some information about, you know, a quarterly kind of what did the January, February, March timeline look like for the last 3 fiscal years, so that you could see that over time. If we did used to have information that showed it, oh, there it is. On page 4, they show you the total amount spent by the state fiscal year, the total annual amounts for home and community-based labor, and then the total average cost. So when you look at state fiscal year 2023, we spent $653 million, and state fiscal year 2024, we spent $660 million. When you look at state fiscal year 25, that we still have 1 quarter to go. So we would anticipate there to be another bump up in terms of the amount of dollars spent for waiver services from last year to this year.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Liu, you're recognized.
I just have a question about it.
Of course.
The OCPD services, since I know, that most people like keep their children in home and community-based care, yeah, I definitely agree. But sometimes, some situation, when you haven't enough resources, you have to seeking, like a facility, care. So I know most time we just talk about the waiver program, talk about home and community base. I just wonder how much ratio and the looks, we only have a few, just option for institutional care. Just wonder how we can improve the services in facility care, because sometimes the family, single, you may not have enough support from home and the community base that then take care of your child. So just consider what kind of services we can get from the facility care, and what kind of, how much just the ratio compare the waiver program and the facility and the. I actually have a question. The facility, like a Pampers, right? The care, rather than usually will go all the way to their older. As they will stay their whole life, or just temporarily, or they just focus on the temporary for some behavior issue or some other issue. So
sure. So if you look back in the state facilities, really most of them, we used to have 9 state operated ICF facilities. And most of them were started like in the early 1960s. And there was no home and community-based services at that time. There was only institutional services. And so if you weren't able to take care of your then, then the suggestion was made, to do institutional living. And so for years, because that was the only option, there were thousands of people in Louisiana who did live in those institutional settings. And then in the eighties, and around in the eighties is when they really started bringing home and community-based waiver services in place. A lot of families who had already made the decision to put their child in a state facility, it was hard for them to think, well, I had to make this really hard decision for my child to go here. And now you're telling me I can get services at home. So that was hard for folks to see how that could work, because we talked about this earlier. There's also some comfort in a large facility where there's a lot of staff, as opposed to waiver where you might only have one or two, depending on what your situation is. So for people who in the, I would say 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even 2000s, when they go into a facility, you would see them stay there for their whole life. Stay there through the time that they pass away. What we see now are more people going to facilities because they have some major medical issues where they might need a nurse more often. And some people do have a nurse in their home 24 hours a day, not a lot, but some do have that. Or they have behaviors that are so significant that it's hard for the family to be able to keep them at home. For those people that get admitted, and now we only have Pinecrest and Central Louisiana, so the other state facilities have closed, and we've seen a lot of private facilities close because, as you said, more people are selecting waiver services over ICF services. But what we're seeing now is more that those group homes or intermediate care facilities, people go there and they only stay for like 2 to 5 years because they're really trying to focus on what happened for me to have to come here. And then what they should be doing is trying to help them, gain independence again, or figure out how to, maybe have some behavior supports to help them be able to manage. And we do see now that a lot more people are leaving the facilities and transitioning back either from a large state facility to a smaller group home or community home, or to waiver back home with family, or waiver. We've had a lot of success with people who leave a facility and maybe they make 2 or 3 friends while they're at the facility. So those 2 or 3 people can move out into kind of a shared waiver home together. So there's a lot of different options that are available, but we are seeing now that the folks, once they enter those state facilities, the vast majority of them do transition out again in about 3 to 5 years. But there are still some people who have been living at Pinecrest. I think they had like a person who's 100 years old there. So they have some people who they got there when they were young and that's been their home all their life. So you kind of have a little of both, but now more recently people who are admitted and then find another place to go.
Okay, I just one more, so the funding for private the Medicaid or something, they still cover the same thing?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The funding, for the private owned the facility, still the same funding cover?
The funding, so the way that the funding works in home and community-based services is a little different than it works for intermediate care facilities. In an intermediate care facility or group home or community home, excuse me, they get a daily rate, a per diem rate, and that rate is supposed to cover everything the person needs. And then the person turns over their Social Security income to that provider, and that covers their room and board. So the provider owns the home or facility or building, and then sort of like that Social Security goes to the provider to pay the person's for their bedroom and their food and those kinds of things. In a waiver home, the person doesn't turn over their Social Security or anything. They keep their check So they have their own apartment or lease, or they live with family, so they don't have one, but they then take care of those kinds of expenses, what they call room and board expenses are covered. And then the rate that's paid in waiver, if you have a direct support worker who comes in, that's paid like on an hourly rate instead of that provider getting just one amount per day to take care of everything. So you might be able to, you can individually pick. You might have a worker come to your home for 8 hours, and then for 5 or 6 hours, you go to a day program. And so there's just different, you can move around a little bit more. And that's why more people are choosing waiver, because you can kind of choose the different services you want that makes sense for you. Whereas in that community or group home, it's more the provider that is sort of managing those things. So it's you have a little more of your own decision-making ability, or the family does, or you do here versus the ICF. That's helpful.
Okay, Vivian.
Hi, so the council's mission is to promote independent living out in the community, not fund like the ICFs and stuff. So I think what you would be like looking for are more community-based services that could help your son live out in the community with you, rather than working towards more ICF things.
Yeah, I will go to sure, yeah. What's the best? Okay, any more questions?
I got one question and I'm gonna make it quick.
Oh, good God. Can I help you?
Yes, you can. Can you explain the waiver that you don't have a company in your home that where you take care of your own book and?
Oh, I'm sorry, self-directed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So if there is another option, and thank you for that reminder, Eric, there's another option in waiver that if you want to have even more control over the sort of the folks that are taking care of you, then you can choose a self-directed option. And in the self-directed option, instead of having a provider who hires the staff that come into your home, you, the person receiving services, or if you need an authorized representative, can then be responsible for hiring and training and supervising and overseeing that staff. And so the services are still delivered through home and community based, and you get the number of hours you get through your plan of care. But then you, as the directed employer, are able to you're able to select a fiscal intermediary who helps you, Acumen or Morning Sun, and then you are hiring your own staff. And generally, you're able to pay a little bit more in the self-directed option than a provider is able to pay, because the whole rate can go towards the person's salary. And with a provider, not only are they having to pay the salary of the employee, but they have other things they have to do for licensing and certification for part of that rate. That. That's what you wanted me to touch here?
Do you have to, if they go over their time, do you have to pay any money out of your pocket if they stay over their hours, do you have to pay any money?
Yeah, you should have people helping to make sure that doesn't happen. So that the number of hours are within the budget, the waiver budget. But yes, it can only pay for what's approved in the plan of care.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Edie, you have a question?
I do. So I lost it. I lost my question. So as far as like funds with like a dealer takes care of for the in home until the waiver kicks in. It's got the name of the program. Can't think of the name of the program right at this very moment.
You're talking about a program that has direct support workers?
Yes.
long-term personal care services?
Yes, so is that just in place until the waiver kicks in?
Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe not.
okay,
So like we have a waiver called the supports waiver. In the supports waiver, we don't have direct support workers who go to your home. The main focus of that waiver is for people who maybe are looking for employment or help with employment or go into a day program or having something to do during the day. In the supports waiver, you might have somebody come from long-term personal care services who comes to your house just for a few hours a week. And then the majority of your waiver is helping you go do your job or go to your day program or something like that. So it can be a combination of long-term personal care services and waiver services, but sometimes it can just be waiver services. So it really just depends on the individual. It can be one or the other or both.
okay. I have more questions, but I'll touch base with you some other time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for Julie? You're going first in July.
I'm just making the best of it.
I'm glad that and get coffee or that minute. Okay, so are there any more comments? Okay, now we have announcement. So Ebony, the chair recognizes Ms. Ebony Higgins. Okay. Thank you, Jill. I have a couple of announcements. The first one, I always forget to announce at the end of the council meetings, but there is a survey in your folders. I'm asking that you please fill out the survey. The staff and I want to make sure that the meetings are well planned and carried out. And if you guys have feedback, we take that very seriously. So if you can, please fill out your survey and just leave it at your spaces and we'll grab it on our way out. Also, I want to just remind everybody about financial disclosure forms. I know we sent out an email, I think probably in early April, to remind you guys to please fill out your financial disclosure forms. Anyone that sits on the council is required to fill one out, and those forms are due on the 15th of this month. And so Bridget and I will be making sure that we go on the website to make sure everyone has completed their financial disclosure. If you haven't, you'll be getting another email from us because you are required to do that as a member of a board or commission. Also, I want to make sure everyone knows that we're continuing to do our work, even though we don't know what our funding situation is. So our 5-year planning, we will be hosting forums. Those public forums are to gather information from our comprehensive review analysis. And that's just to capture where the barriers and gaps are in our service system here in Louisiana. So it's really important that we get people to come out to those. We're having 2 of them. And we might consider a virtual one after those 2 if we don't get enough feedback. The first one is next week, May 7th in Monroe, Louisiana. So we're traveling up north. If anybody knows anybody that's up there, please share the information. And then we're having the second one on May 14th here at this library in this exact room on May 14th. So I encourage y'all to please send out the information, get others to come and join us at those public forums so that we can gather information for your next 5-year plan. And in relation to that, I am asking for volunteers for the 5-year planning committee. According to our schedule for the 5-year plan, the next 5-year plan, which starts 2027 to 2031, we have to have a planning committee that's gonna have a couple of meetings to discuss the council's next 5-year plan. So I encourage everyone, all of you guys to volunteer for that, but I'm asking for volunteers for now. So that Stephanie will have those names so that she can start planning those meetings. So does anyone want to, I know we're at the end of the meeting, everybody's ready to go. So the quicker I get volunteers, the quicker we can be done.
I'm not in need, Mayor.
No, you don't have to nominate.
Stephanie,
I do encourage our agency reps to, be on that planning committee though, because you guys are aware of where the gaps are in our service system for education, for, our home and community-based services. So, I mean, if you guys are interested, I encourage you to volunteer for that planning committee. No, if you're not happy.
Nominate you too.
Nominate y'all too.
That's what it takes.
Tony, are you volunteering for that committee? I'm gonna write your name down because I think you are. Thank you, Tony. I got your name.
Want me to ask?
okay,
Nominate you.
Okay, I got you.
but,
Adrian.
I can ask,
Well,
Okay.
with
this is out.
sometimes like as long as it is, I think the last time we did it, you started bringing it up by years of education time, years of like, if you could do that, it might help some of us as they reps be easier to participate in, you know.
So maybe not necessarily members of the committee as much as times for you to come in to share
Information.
info about
Okay,
certain
that might
topics
help.
or discussions.
Otherwise, I might have to be like, you know. But yeah, you can look at it and I'll wrangle somebody else's arm in case I can't.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Oh, Julie.
How many meetings? It's gonna at least be 2 meetings. It might be more, it just all depends on how quickly we can get through all of the survey feedback, all of the public forum feedback, for you guys to narrow down what you wanna put in your 5-year plan. And Brooke.
I just wanted to add something really quick for everybody to know. The purpose of this ad hoc is to write the next goals and objectives for our 5-year plan. So it is very, very, very important and we would like as many volunteers as we can, because the more brains we have on here, the better it will be. So I just wanted to make sure you knew what it was for.
Evan.
Unknown one. Okay, thank you. I don't care. I'll do it.
Volunteer.
Wait, I'm sorry, Julie. I'll do it, and you don't want to share it. Gotcha.
Yeah, nominate Eric.
You nominate Eric too. I got you, Eric.
I do it to me.
We're in this together.
We have 11. So then you got, and,
The whole council is gonna be.
Committee of the whole, committee of the whole.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I have,
Yeah.
yeah, I got her. I have you 2 here. Okay, and then what you doesn't want to say aye. Thank you guys so much for volunteering. Yeah, this is a big group and we're excited about our next 5 years.
Myself. I didn't sell.
Yes.
You know that.
It's time to back out if you're
We're
doing it.
gonna send you the information in.
Still has her hand raised, so I'm not.
Oh, okay. Jill, Brooke still has her hand raised, so I'm not sure if you want to say.
I wanted to volunteer for the planning committee.
I got you, Brooke.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the good people are out here.
And that's all the announcements I have to, thank you. Our next quarterly meeting is July 30th and 31st, by the way. Just put that on your calendar.
Both?
July 30th and
31st?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, that's all I have, Jill. Thank you.
Okay, consent if there are no objections. Will adjourn and thank y'all to work in y'all service and to tip your care person.
Thank you.